Today we're going to be doing Google Sheets lesson 3.3, figuring grades. The subtitle is using formulas. It tells us in the overview that you've been asked to help some of your teachers learn how to use a spreadsheet to figure their grades. You will be having several workshops to show them how to create spreadsheets to figure averages. In this lesson, you will use Google Sheets to create a spreadsheet that will use formulas to calculate averages. It tells us that the new skills that we're going to be doing in this lesson, you're going to be able to use formulas to average, find a maximum number, a minimum number. You're also going to use the increase, decrease decimal places, and cut and paste text, and then add borders to a spreadsheet. All right, so we're going to go ahead and begin with the instructions. So instruction step 1 tells us that in your My Sheets folder, you're going to create a spreadsheet and name it lesson 3.3. So I'm going to go to my drive. Here's where my Google lessons are. Going to go to My Sheets and a new one, Google Sheets. Wait for it to load up here, and then where it says Untitled Spreadsheet, I'm going to call this Lesson 3.3. Alright, so now I'm ready to begin. So instruction step 2 says to enter the data as shown below. So I'm going to start in cell A1. Biology test scores. Enter. This is for Mr. Passing. Enter. Go down. Actually, I'm going to go down to cell A4 and start. And then I'm going to turn on my caps lock. Hit tab to go across. First. Oops, made a mistake there. And I'll go up there to fix it. Tab across. And test 1. Test 2. Test 3. And average. Right. Then I'm going to hit enter. It's going to take me actually back down here where I want to go. And I'm going to turn off my caps lock. Interesting last name. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause the video at this point so that I can finish keying this data. You can go ahead and finish keying it as well, and once you have keyed all of the data there in that little display, then you can go ahead and resume the video. Okay, we're going to pick back up here. You can see that I have finished keying the information for the students. I'm just going to finish here. I'm going to turn my caps lock on. I'm in cell A18 and do these last 3 cells. These are in all caps. So I have completely entered the data that we'll be needing for the spreadsheet. So we are now ready to continue on to the next step. Step 3, a new skill to find the average. It says to calculate the student's test score average, do the following. Step A says in cell A5. I'm going to go to cell A5. I'm sorry, F5. I didn't think that made sense. So in cell F5, from the function drop-down menu, you're going to select average. Now you'll remember that a function we talked about with the last lesson, a function is a formula that has already been created. So you don't actually have to create the formula. So in this case, we're going to be creating a formula for an average because we want to know what the average of JoJo's three test scores are. So since Google has already created that formula for you, we're just going to use it. So I had to click on the More in order to get to the Functions button. When I click on it, I'm going to choose Average, and you'll see that it puts a formula right there in the cell, but it's looking for the data that it should calculate. And so it says so I did step A, which is in cell F5 from the Functions drop-down menu, choose Average. Then step B says when prompted to select a range of cells, you're going to select cells C5 to E5. So here's C5, click and drag, D5, E5. And so you'll see that it put that there into that formula for you. Then step C says to hit the Enter key, and the spreadsheet will automatically calculate that formula for you. And it says use the autofill function to fill the formula to the rows below F6 to F16. And so it's obviously we don't want to have to recalculate that formula for each one. We could, we could hit the average again, select those cells, but we can also just go back here, click that autofill handle, drag it down, and it will autofill all of those cells for you. So it has put an average in there. But now as we look at this, you'll see some of them have lots of decimal places, and that's not necessarily what we're going to want. So step 4 of your instructions are going to tell you how to get rid of that. It says to increase or decrease decimal places. That's a new skill. It says to increase or decrease the number of decimal places to the right of the decimal point. Select cells F5 to F16, and actually still have those selected. And it says click the decrease decimal places icon to remove all decimal places from the average. So here are, that little illustration shows you, point to 1, it says decrease decimal places or increase. We want to decrease. So I'm going to click, 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 click until I get rid of all of the decimal places there. It says notice the average is now rounded to the nearest whole number, and so that's exactly what it did. So now we're ready for step 5. Step 5 says to insert a formula in cells C18, C19, C20, and C21 to find the class average for each test, as well as the class average, and then remove all the decimal places. So this is one you're going to have to figure out on your own. Okay, but if you're watching the video, I'm just gonna pause here just for a moment, and I'm going to remind you of what you're doing. Up here we found an average, okay, of the 3 test scores. So now down here where it says class average, you're going to be finding out what the average test grade was. So instead of these 3, you're going to be finding an average of those. So I'm going to give you just about 60 seconds while I wait to see if you can figure out how to do that. And then I'll show you how to do it if you can't figure it out. All right, so hopefully you figured that out, and so you have an average there, but if not, I'm going to show you. It's going to be the exact same way we did this one. So here with cell C18 selected, I'm going to come up here to the functions and choose average, and it's going to, again, put the formula in. It's going to ask me what do I want to average, so I want to average cell C5 all the way down to C16, and then I'm going to hit, and you can see that that's what's in that cell, hit enter. And it says it's 86.5. I'm going to fill that all the way across so that it adds into all those cells. And then I'm going to decrease the decimal places so that there are no decimals. So now I can see what was the average of each of those tests as well as the class average. All right. So now we're ready to go on to step 6, find the maximum. So this is another new skill. It says to calculate the highest score for test 1, you're going to do the following in cell C19. It says from the functions drop-down menu, we're going to choose the max. Now this is something we could probably do pretty quickly just by looking at this, because there's only about 12 test scores here. But if, let's say you had 150 students, it would take a lot longer. So the formula that we're going to do now is going to actually manually have the computer look at the test scores and decide which is the highest. Okay, so in cell C19, I'm going to click the functions, and I'm going to choose max, So now it just needs to know the cell range. So it's the same cell range. Cell C5 to C16, hit enter. And so sure enough, it tells me the highest test score was 100 points. And you can go up there and you can see that very quickly. I'm just going to fill that across. Now, honestly, we would only have to do the 3 test scores, but go ahead and do the class average as well. Okay, highest in the class is 96. So now we're going to do the lowest. Find the minimum test score, and it's going to work exactly the same. It says to calculate the lowest test score for test 1, do the following. In cell C20, you're going to, from the functions drop-down menu, choose minimum. There it is. And then it says when prompted, select the cell range, cell C5 to C16. So I'm going to do that. There we go. And then it says to hit enter. So it tells me the lowest score was 70. And if look up there, I can verify that is the case. It says apply this formula using the autofill to fill that formula in for test 2 and 3. I'm going to click and drag that across. And it actually says just test 2 and 3. So let me see what it said on the previous one, because we may want to go back and, yeah, it did. So I'm actually going to take that off of there. Don't need that, okay? Well, you know, I'm going to just leave it so I can tell what the highest grade in the class is, what the highest and lowest test average is. All right, so we have filled that across there. So now we're ready to go to step 8. Step 8 is going to have us bolding row 4. So let's see, find row 4. Here's row 4. So I'm just going to select the number 4. It's going to select that whole row, and then I'm going to choose bold. Okay, and then it tells us in step 9 we're going to right align cells C4 to F4. So I'm going to select C4 across to F4, and it tells me to right align those. I've done that. Okay, and then it says to bold cells C18 to F20. C18 to F20. Can't really see that well because of that. So F20. So I'm going to bold those test scores and averages. Very good. Okay, now we are on step 11. It says to cut and paste text. To cut and text and move it to a new location in your spreadsheet, you're going to do the following. This is a new skill. We haven't done this yet in a spreadsheet, but it says to select cell A18 through A20. So I'm going to select those. And now notice that when I select them, it looks like part of it's cut off. But remember, as long as there's nothing in the cell to the right, it will automatically allow that text to flow into that next cell. But actually, all of that information is held in these 3 cells. So it says, and then on the sorry for that. Then it says right-click that. Right-click. And we're going to choose cut. And you'll notice that it put a dotted line around that text now. It didn't necessarily disappear. It just put a dotted line around it, but that indicates that this text is selected and cut. Now it says position your cursor in cell B18. Okay. And so I click there, and then it says to right-click and choose paste. Okay. So when I did that, when I hit paste, and you could have also gone up and done that through the edit menu as well. There's cut, copy, and paste there. Notice when I put that in there, now notice that part of that text is cut off. So it tells me then to resize column B so that the data is visible. I'm just going to do that. So it automatically resized it for me. All right. And then it says to add borders. Okay, this is step 12. To add a line around a cell or a group of cells in your spreadsheet, you're going to select cell A4 through F20. So I'm going to select all of that. That's why I didn't notice. I didn't get everything. I didn't get the very top, just this part down here. And then it says from the borders drop-down menu, and the little illustration shows you that, we're going to choose all borders. So I point to you can see the first one that says a border You can kind of see what kind of borders you're wanting. This one has borders around everything, so select that. And then you'll notice on your screen it did in fact put a box around every cell. So that's what it was looking for. I'm going to close that, click off of it, and you can see what that looks like now. All right, and step 13 says to proofread your spreadsheet for spelling and grammar mistakes, so you may want to look over it real quick. And then it says to turn in on Google Classroom. And you'll also want to make sure before you turn this in that that in fact you have the same averages that I do. If you don't just type it in. That's not what it's asking you to do. You should have a formula in each of these cells. And so if it's not right and the formula is correct, then that means you have a wrong number up here. Okay. All right. So if you'll stay tuned, you'll see a printout, or you'll see a slide with the key in the video, and then you can turn it in.